Hi, I'm Michael Corder for Serious Writer's Block, author of suspense thriller Have You Seen Her, and editor-in-chief of Last Quarter of the Moon Publishing. At Serious Writer's Block, we help serious writers to achieve their dream of writing and publishing their life's work so that they can share their talent, their special message, and leave a lasting legacy. I'm so excited to welcome you to our first post. On Serious Writer's Blog, we will tackle the struggles and challenges that we'll face on our journey as a serious writer on the long and bumpy road to becoming a published author. Whether you plan to self-publish or traditionally publish your manifesto, Serious Writer's Block is for you. It amazes me how many people want to write. It seems like everyone that I know has a story to tell. Even more would want to tell it, whether it's their own story or that of a loved one, to get it out there, if only it weren't so hard to write. Then there are others who love to write. They write and write and write and write, then rewrite and edit and rewrite in order to hone their craft. I can relate to these perpetual writers. I was one of them until one day I realized that I didn't need to make it that hard. I was in my own way, and a lot of it had to do with the way that I thought. No, I didn't need to wait for someone to anoint me as an author in order for my work to see the light of day. I began writing fiction when I was 8. I remember scribbling wide-eyed tales on yellow, wide-ruled paper. It seemed like everything that ever happened that was worth anything when I was a kid happened when I was 8. I wrote so many short stories in different genres and with the wildest characters imaginable. The stories came to me and I just wrote them down. It was slow going with pen and paper, and I would write late into the night until my eyes were bleary and my fingertips bruised from gripping the pen too tight. In high school, I was bent on perfecting my characters and their stories. Still, I was writing with pen and paper, and it was slow going. I developed many of my favorite characters during high school. High school is ripe with characters of its own, and I used that to my advantage. I also dove in headfirst with role-playing games. By the mid-90s, I was a college graduate, employed, married, with our first child on the way. Definitely more about him in our upcoming posts. I was writing a short story about a bar fight that happened to break out in a tavern when I realized that the overarching story was way too interesting to chop it up into yet another series of short stories, which had been my fashion. Now, I was well read, but that didn't mean that I had any confidence that I could write a book, and yet that is what I set out to do. After the 5th or 6th rewrite, which seemed inevitable, at or about the 3rd chapter. So I'd write 3 chapters in, rewrite again, 3 chapters in, 4 chapters, rewrite again. It occurred to me that the backstory to the bar fight would be an exciting opening to the book. And so then in the end, the bar fight became the 10th chapter, a prologue and 9 action-packed chapters serving as its preamble. The real boon to my creativity, though, was, and possibly to the longevity of my writing, was putting down the pen and paper and writing on a computer. I don't know how authors like Homer and Plato, Socrates, Shakespeare, Longfellow, Poe, I don't know how they wrote as much as they did by hand. That takes such great talent, and you risk never finishing what you started. Has that happened to you? Are you energized about something when you start, and then life gets in the way, and eventually falls on the wayside of the road of broken dreams? I think back to all those short stories and the misstarts in writing, which never amounted to a hill of beans. What if I had given up on this, my novel? Would this have been just one more novel on the scrap heap? Now let's fast forward 10 years. Yes, I know what you're thinking. And I have a good number of excuses as to why. But it did. It took 10 years for me to finish it. And when it was done, I was exhausted. I had just spent over 10 years of my life doing something. And quite frankly, I didn't even want to look at it again, no less edit it. And you might be wondering, what could have possibly caused the book to take so long? You know, I could spend several posts just on the special form of procrastination that plagues creators. So, you know, for we love the act of creation so much that we are vulnerable to the desire to never let it go. At times, we can be so enamored as to perpetuate the act of creation as if we could simply keep writing and rewriting and futzing and being as finicky as we want to be because it's our baby. But what good is it if we keep it close to the vest and we never share it with the world? It took me 10 years to write my first novel. It would take another 10 years for me to get around to publishing it. And I'm pleased to announce that Moths to a Flame, the first novel I wrote, will be finally published in June this year. Now, lest you think that I just take 10 years to write a novel, I did write a novel during a 3-day novel writing contest, and it was 150 pages. But more on that at another time. Just so you know, this one, it took 10 years, but you know, when I completed it, it was an epic fantasy, and it weighed in at around 540 pages. And the reason it took so long, if you really want to know, is because I just didn't have all the skills that I probably needed to have in order to write something that long. And over the years, I've developed that. I know what it is that I bet you I could have written that a lot quicker now. And when I write the sequel, we'll see how long it takes me. But in completing it, I proved to myself that I could be an author. And I proved to myself that I could do it. I learned what it takes to do it and to have the courage to achieve a goal. Do you know what else happened? It completely amazes me. I inspired some of my friends to write. For a couple of them, my writing a novel was the proverbial gauntlet that served as a contest to see who could write faster, or who could write craft wittier prose, develop vibrant, iconic characters, or hook us with a gripping plot or sinister twist. And we have had so much fun over the years writing and reading together. And the result, well, I have written 7 works and a screenplay, with 3 more in process. And by undertaking that goal to write a novel, I've influenced, and through them in turn have influenced, writers who wrote 26 works, 2 screenplays, and have earned 19 awards, with new works in process. That is the power of following your dreams, that you might make a difference in someone else's life too. Years after creating and completing Moths to a Flame, my eldest son, born while I was still noodling with those precursive short stories, picked up a homemade, hand-bound hardcover of my novel, a copy which I had made, sewn and bound with my own 2 hands. He picked it up and he read it. And Alex said that it was reading and holding my book in his hands that inspired him to write as well. And that is why I'm here, to help serious writers to achieve their dream of writing and publishing their life's work, so that they can share their talent, their special message, and leave a lasting legacy. I've been blessed with a loving family and friends, among whom are some of the most creative and gifted people that I've ever had the opportunity to know. It's my greatest desire that in sharing my experiences with you, that you'll be able to realize your desire to author your own book. For first-timers, I promise not to talk over your head. And for seasoned authors, I promise not to mince words or gloss over the difficult subjects that plague our profession and hold aspiring authors back. As this blog is for serious writers, my goal is to provide inspiration, techniques and tools, publishing industry news, interviews with fellow authors, artists, publishers, and agents, topics du jour, and a monthly writing challenge. This is really important to me. A monthly writing challenge intended to get your creative juices flowing. In serving you, this is my way of paying forward the inspiration that I have received from the great authors that influenced me. So today, on Serious Writer's Block, as it's tax day in the United States and it's starting to wind down, I'm taping this at night. You'll probably see this the next day. I really wanted to set up an opportunity where we could hear from you. This is our first post. It's tax day in the U.S., so I wanted to talk about business. And in particular, I wanted to hear from you, writers new and established, self-published or signed with a traditional publisher. I wanted to hear what are some of the business issues that come to your mind on this day. All of us recognize that we will tackle many struggles and challenges that we face on our journey to become a serious writer. As I've said before, it's a long and bumpy road to becoming a published author. But we don't have to make it alone. We're a community. We love to write. We love to hate to write sometimes, though we write anyway. Whether you're published or plan to self-publish or to traditionally publish, I know that you have questions and that many of you out there have the answers. So I wanted to take this time to ask you to share your questions and any helpful comments you may have below. Please keep in mind, we're all on the same journey. Some of us are a little further along than others, but nothing that's said here on this site or in these comments should ever be intended to be legal or accounting advice. So please, the only legal advice I could offer you is that you should consider consulting a lawyer, and which I am certainly not. and as far as accounting advice, you need to think about when is the right time for you to seek out the right accountant to help you both with tax planning and with preparation. And when is that time? I can tell you from my experience that waiting to engage the right legal and accounting advice has cost me much more than it would have if I had counseled them with them first. But please keep in mind, the advice that's offered here is just that. And it's just different people's opinions. You still should go out and seek your own legal and accounting advice. For the stuff that's mentioned here is not intended to be specific legal or accounting advice for you. So, with that long and inelegant preamble, what type of things might we talk about today? Well, you might introduce yourself, mention what type of work you write, whether or not it's published yet, and if so, did you publish it, self-publish it, or did you sign with a traditional publisher? And then you can answer. You can either ask a question or you can provide your perspective in answering someone else's. So, what topics can we talk about? Well, top of mind for me, business structures. We can talk about what kind of business structures. If you're a writer, as an author, how will you structure your business? Do you self-publish or traditionally publish? That could be a blog in and of itself. Do you seek a literary agent? How do you handle royalties? Have you consulted a lawyer? Should you consult a lawyer? On what topics? And do you use an accountant, or do you brave tax season on your own? Really, this time's for you, and I will be actively monitoring and responding to these comments and questions that you post. But the time's for you, and we want to hear what's important to you. Maybe we'll post it on a upcoming post. I look forward to our interaction in the coming weeks as we travel this serious writer's journey together. May your muse so shine to elevate your prose and bring your story home. May the tax man stay away. Until we meet again, take care.